guys. Are you ready to get started?
Yes.
I was on mute. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm sorry.
Okay. So thank you for coming to our panel. We set up a couple of questions for me and Maya to ask you. So the first question is just, could you just introduce yourself to the audience, and anything you want to include about yourself?
I'm Ara, full name Oreoluwa Adewale. I'm a senior at Stony Brook, and I'm the president of NAACP, the vice president of also, which is the National Black Law Students Association. I'm an RA in Tubman. I am a member of the Student African American Sisterhood. I am a student liaison for the Black and Latino Alumni Network, and I'm sure I'm missing something, but that's all I can think of right now.
Oh my gosh, you're doing so much. You're free to go to the next question.
Yeah. So yeah, you definitely are doing a lot on campus. But I guess to start with the theme of the discussion that we're doing tonight, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you?
So Black Lives Matter means, in its essence, that like Black people have value, like not monetarily, but like their lives, like obviously for lack of a better term, matter. Like we shouldn't have to be fighting for the fact that we should be alive. Like Black women shouldn't be dying at the rates that they're dying for giving birth. So it's like just our lives are important, and like they shouldn't just be thrown to the wayside because of the color of our skin.
Yeah. And how would you say that the movement has impacted you?
I definitely think it's made me more self-aware, like of who I am and like what's going on around me in society, because it's easy to walk around the world and like pretend like the color of your skin doesn't matter. But like just being educated on this movement, it's like it does, and like you have to be careful of the things that you do. And I think that like one of the points of the movement is like so we don't have to think about that stuff anymore. Like I wouldn't have to think about like how many things I have in my hand when I'm going like towards clothes near the center of the door in the mall, right? Like I shouldn't have to be hyper aware of like things that no one else is aware of. So yeah.
And our next question is, the protest that the NAACP and the Black Student Athlete Huddle organized last semester was really successful. You're wondering, what were you hoping it would accomplish when you were planning everything?
So the NAACP and the Black Student Athlete Huddle, I think our goal was to just give students a way to like have a voice on campus, because there was like there's a lot of things happening in the summer and not everybody could go to every protest. So if you were on campus, this was your time. And I also think it was a way for us to like show the school, show all the departments that like just cut what you said on Instagram, what you said in the email, we're holding you to it. Like we're not going to sit back here and just allow for you to pretend like you care. Like we're going to say that like, okay, we're here in your face. We read your demands. We read everything that you said and we want you to act on it. So, yeah.
And on the same note of the protest, I remember being there and there were so many different components to it. But for those that weren't there, can you kind of describe the campus protest and what it was like?
It was hot. It was very hot that day. I remember that. I was like, what is going on? But there was a lot of people. I think, a lot of like basically all the athletic department was there, and then you had like other students there as well. And I think the atmosphere to me, like it was just kind of like shocking, I guess. I didn't really like I knew the athletes would be there, but like the other people who came, I was kind of like, oh, like, hi, thank you for coming. And then like being thanked for having a protest seemed like very strange to me, because it's just like we should be doing this. Like this is not something you should be thanking me for. This is something that I expect of everyone. So I think everybody was like really excited. And there was a lot of things said that was like super inspiring. And I think people were like almost in awe of what was going on. Cause I know like when I was speaking and like seeing all those people on the scholar steps was almost like overwhelming. So I'm like we're not having a party, like like we're doing so, you know, and it was like people were there still. So yeah.
Just as a follow-up, do you remember anything that kind of stuck with you? Like anything that any of the administrators or fellow peers of yours said?
I think, okay, so obviously Dr. Watson, whatever, like what he said, I think whenever he speaks, like I'm always like, wow, this man is, you know, like genius. And then there's Dr. Fleming as well. Like she couldn't be there was because obviously it's like COVID, but what she said was also very like wow. And I think because like it was like her voice was coming from the sky a little bit, it was like what's going on. But it was like both of them, like a lot of people spoke, but like those two in particular, it's just like what they had to say like hit home. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Our next question was, for your organization, do you have any plans for the spring semester, or any goals that you really want to accomplish, I guess, before you graduate?
Yeah, so next week we're actually having like the image awards, like not formally because we can't have it, but like every day, like we're doing 90s theme and celebrating like the seniors because we're like the last of the 90s babies. So we're like doing something every day, giving out awards and just like letting people just celebrate Blackness and like in all its goodness. We're also talking about having another protest, you know, like in collab with some like different people. We don't know yet because like there's obviously lots of ins and outs and it's super cold right now. So we'd have to have it more like when it's warmer. But yeah, we have like a lot of things, a lot of collabs, a lot of just us celebrating the Black community and like all communities. So
Now, kind of moving away from the national spectrum and going more local, how can Stony Brook University do better when it comes to Black students?
um, I think the first thing is like them having this question like not have to be asked anymore, right? Like especially to Black students. Um, I think, you know, I've heard this question a lot, and I think it's a question that makes sense, of course, but it's really not my job to be like answering it. Um, like accountability is something that's super important to me. So to hold people accountable when they're not upholding equity. And I don't think that's something that happens. I think um, also just like a space for Black students to be able to be themselves. Because when you go to a PWI, you know, sometimes you have to put on a mask when you go into class, when you talk to your professors. And like, even if you have Black faculty and staff, like retention's not great. So how long are they going to be with you, right? So it's like where you see people that look like you and they're here for the long run and there's more of them and there's a place that you could be you. I think that's not like heavily policed either. Because I think a lot of the time when we have events, like there is a police presence or there is like someone who's trying to police us that might not be in a uniform. And that's always like kind of reminding us that, like, oh, you have like there's something about you that like isn't supposed to be. So
So being part of the NAACP, when you're looking back at all the years you spent with the organization or even outside of the organization, what are some like memories you're really fond of or accomplishments you're really proud of?
I think last year's Image Awards is probably one of the most proudest moments. My e-word might tell you different because I was like a little upset at them for whatever. But now that I think about it now, it was like there were just so many people there and like people were enjoying themselves, like winning awards, and they were genuinely happy that people were winning, and just all the social media promotion that we did and the response that we got, like it made everything worth it. And that was also like the last event that we had before COVID like shut everything down. So just remembering that is like one of my fondest memories, because it showed that like, wow, our hard work is paying off. People know who we are. And then the protests, like, you know, I still get emails about it, as that's what we're doing right now. So just like making the NAACP on this campus as big and as meaningful as possible, like that's what I'm trying to do before I leave, at least.
I know you've mentioned the NAACP Image Awards a couple of times. So maybe for those that don't know, could you kind of explain what the purpose behind it and their mission and the goal?
Yeah, so with the Image Awards, like it's kind of what we do is like a mimic of the actual Image Awards, but like we don't have celebrities yet on this campus. So we just celebrate the accolades of the community. So this year we couldn't send out a nomination form, but like we usually send out a nomination form, get the names, and then send out an actual voting form. And then the day of the awards, everyone gets dressed up, you get fed, you know, you sit at a table, and like you see who wins or which organizations win, and we have like entertainment, and it's just usually a really good time.
Okay. And going back to the Black Lives Matter movement, so we've seen obviously enormous growth and support these past few months, and a wave of performance activism has also come with that. So organizations that have harmed or ignored the Black community in the past are now coming out as allies. And I just wanted to ask you, where have you noticed this happen, and how can we kind of move towards being active activists for those that are being performative?
Um, well, I used to work retail, so I the company I used to work for definitely put out a statement, and it's you know, it's a higher end store, so innately there's always going to be like issues with race. Um, I also feel like schools, like universities, do it often as well. Um, you know, they say even departments like, yeah, so like we're here for you. Like we want to know like what ideas you have, and we want to stand up for you. But a lot of the time, the Black students, the Black faculty staff, or the Black employees are the ones who have to do the emotional labor, and it shouldn't be like that, because if you genuinely cared, that wouldn't be a thing. Um, how you could be an active activist, I mean, like I don't think I'm the most qualified person to say, because I'm only 21. But I think that's where integrity comes in. And I think we all know integrity means like what you're doing when nobody's watching, right? So a lot of people I noticed, it's, you know, you post these things, and yes, like internet activism innately is performative, and like, you know, and in its essence, but like you say these things, like whether you're in person, you're online, and it just doesn't match the person that you are. And I think that's something that has happened a lot, like over the summer and just in life. Like, oh, Black Lives Matter, but when you're with your friends, you say the N-word, and then like you reek of racism and colorism and every ism that there is, right? So it's like that doesn't really matter to you. You just want people to clap for you. And I know like in departments and like bigger entities, like obviously you have to say those things because people aren't going to buy from you, but it's like if you're going to say it, you might as well be about it too, because it's like you're harming people when you don't. So
A lot of what you said actually answered the next question, which was like, how do you address tokenism as a college student? And I think since you already addressed that, the next question is more about how did you find your own voice and sense of identity growing up like in America? And I think having so much pressure to like assimilate or conform to everyone else.
mm-hmm. I mean, I can answer the tokenism one like really quickly. I think that with tokenism, like innately, I think a lot of people, like even though your intention might be good, the impact when it comes to like race matters a lot more than your intention. So like even this, right? I'm talking about like a Black Lives Matter protest that happened last semester. Like in essence, like I'm a token. I'm not getting paid for this. I'm doing it for free. And I'm this Black girl who's talking about like how it feels to be Black on a campus. So yes, I'm a token right now. And I think sometimes people are like, oh, like if you feel like that, you should just speak up when it happens. But a lot of the time you don't realize it's happening until like you get to reflect on your day. So how to stop that, you know, like be intentional. Like it's okay to want to show like different people of different colors on your Instagram page or on your website, but what does that mean for them, right? So show them like have diversity, be inclusive, but at the end of the day, you have to make sure that your policies are also there to represent them as well. Um, and how I found my voice or like who I am, I think I'm still trying to do that because I am young. I think just like when you educate yourself on certain topics, you just there's no like for me when I learn about like different Black people and Black history and like what it means to me to be Black, I can't help but be proud. Like I just see so many Black people do so many amazing things, and it's like I don't have any other emotion but like to be proud of being Black. Like I see what the people before me have done, and I like, wow, like the people after me, what can they do, you know? So in that, being proud to be Black, I think there's just a different way in which I see the world. So yes, like I've been I've been around a lot of white people. I went to a predominantly like white high school. This school is predominantly white. So you just kind of I guess you kind of just have to like navigate differently. I guess that's how I would say. And then like sometimes, you know, it's definitely hard when sometimes you're the only Black person or person of color in your classroom, but you just have to like chug through it, which sucks. Like it's not a good thing at all because it's not your job to have to do that. But when you know like all the possibilities that you can do, it's kind of like minimal.
As a follow-up to the tokenism one, I just had another question to that. So do you see that at Stony Brook? I know we talked about it like on social media and different companies and websites, but specifically with Stony Brook.
Yeah. I don't think Stony Brook is exempt from anything. Like yeah, all the time. Like whether it's like the pictures that they choose to put up or like the events they choose to promote in certain months. Like obviously it's Black History Month, so I've seen so many like events from Black orgs all of a sudden. And I think, you know, this university prides itself on diversity and inclusion. So I think that's something they just have to do. But I definitely, as a student, I don't see like how that relates to us. Like I don't see the changes that I should. So yeah, no, I don't see. I don't, yeah.
Got it. So also we know that social media has promoted a lot of resources like books and shows and music and podcasts about basically Black history and education for allies. So do you have any personal recommendations?
You know, I don't think I'm gonna give like a recommendation of something specific because there's a whole lot of things and I don't want to like feel bad later. But like just look online. Like I think there's something out there for everyone at like every level who's learning about like anti-racism, like Black history, colorism, like all these things, and white supremacy. There's something for everyone at every level. So you just have to like dive in. And there's a plethora of knowledge. And sometimes it's overwhelming, but it's like the repercussions of it is like a lot better than for you to continue to act like you're ignorant. So just go on Google and they'll let you know. Yeah.
And sorry, I had one more question. So do you have any other like any Black role models that you look up to?
Yeah, that's like another thing. Plethora of people. I look like Black people in general. I usually look up to them, like especially if they're like within themselves. Like if they see themselves as successful, it doesn't necessarily mean like society has to see them as successful. But I think like because there's so many, I think somewhat like I've been doing a lot of reflection lately. You know, very debonair of me. But I think my role model is who I'm going to be, like just like the future me, because I can only imagine like if I do all this stuff now, like in the future, like I just look up to who I know I'm going to be, which allows me to hold myself to a certain standard. and allows me, like, that's motivation as well, because I know I'm gonna be, like, I already am, like, I'm phenomenal, right? So like I know, like, in the future there's nowhere else but up. So I kind of like look up to myself, but like not in a narcissistic way, but like in a aspiration thing. Yeah.
Thank you for that. We're about to go to the Q&A session for if any of the audience have any questions. But before that, do you have any last messages or anything you would want to say to the audience before we open it up?
I think, like, in terms of Black Lives Matter, like, I know everything, like, it kind of just like shot up in June or in May, that like everybody decided that like this was something that was important. But I think it's more significant to know like the repercussions of you taking a movement that is talking about the lives of people not seriously. Like, it's not like, this is not a joke by any means. Like, people are dying, like being murdered by police, being murdered by doctors, like being murdered by people who are just like hateful in general. So if this is something that you like claim to be a fan of, or claim that you like love and really want to get to know, I suggest that you take it serious, because people are dying. So like, if you don't want to talk about it, like, that's annoying, but like if it's not something that you're actually into, then just let people hold you accountable for you being like a bad person, because it's not a joke. So yeah.
I had one more question actually. What legacy would you want to leave at SBU? Because I know you're graduating soon.
Legacy. I don't know. I think just like, I don't know if like I want to be known for anything. I think I just want like the things that I care about to have a legacy instead. That would make me a lot more happy than people like remembering my name. Yeah, so if the legacy I want to leave is that like this school like upholds Black Lives Matter, upholds racial equity in its true form, and like allows Black students to like have some sort of peace and solitude, because it's really like, it shouldn't be as hard as it is here, because I've seen other universities do it differently and do it better. So yeah, just like there's so many beautiful and amazing Black people on this campus, and like Stony Brook is really like wasting the potential that they have here. So I would just like Black students, Black faculty, Black staff to just get treated like they're actual people. So that's the legacy I want to leave.
So if anyone has any questions, you feel free to unmute or put it in the chat. Whether you're part of the Statesman or just join the call.
Well, I guess I'll ask you. I wanted to know, I'm curious, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Like, do you have hopes of, your voice taking you to bigger and better places out in the world?
So I want to be a lawyer, which I guess is very fitting for how I speak about things. So in the next 10 years, I'll be an attorney of some sort. My uncle always jokes that I'm going to be like the attorney general, which is, I think he doesn't understand how like big that is, but doing something that's like going to make a change, and just, not have any student debt either, because I don't like owing any money, but yeah.
It's awesome.
So I also know that you're an Africana Studies major as well. So why did you choose to major in that area? And what do you love about it, if you do love it?
Yeah, no, I love it. I love Africana Studies. My first class that I took was my freshman year, second semester, and like I fell in love with it. It was AFS 325, Civil Rights and the Black Power movement, and I was like, yeah. Like, my professor showed like the Black Panthers, like the vanguard of the revolution. That's a documentary that is phenomenal. And I saw it and I was like, yeah, like, where do I sign up? Like, I absolutely am in love. And then ever since, like, I made it a minor, and then I was like, nah, this is not enough. And then I made it a major, and ever since, like, all the professors are like incredibly intelligent. Like, it's actually absurd how smart they are. Like, like I think they're probably like probably the smartest people on this campus. And I just learned so much. And you think that you know everything, like even just as being a Black person, and there's just a plethora of knowledge there. So I absolutely adore it, and I love the professors too. So it's a plus.
So also, as we know, Kamala Harris recently became our VP, and she's the first Black woman to ever be like, president or vice president, like in the White House. Right. And it's a big milestone. So what are your thoughts on that? How did you feel when you, heard that she won with Biden?
Relieved, like definitely being able to like breathe the air in. That was another day that was like super hot and random because it was November. And the sun was shining and it was like 70 degrees. So it kind of like came full circle. Like in an interview, like a previous interview I did with you, it was kind of like they have a lot of expectations on their shoulders. So I hope they follow through, but it's like, it's amazing to see that. And I don't think I can put into words like how much that actually means, like what, like whether it's to me or in this country, because she definitely is doing the thing. Because to be like, she's the first, like so many things. So yeah, it means a lot.
Hi, Aura.
Hi, Lex.
Okay, so I have a question. First, I just want to say great job. You're amazing. So I know that you've gone to predominantly like white high schools and like now you're at a PWI. And I just want to know like, were you always like super confident in your Blackness and being a Black woman? Is that something like you've had to overcome? Or was that just like always you? Were you always like very proud of that and very just aware of who you are?
Okay, so I definitely wasn't like the same way that I am now, because now I'm, I think everyone's like, oh, Aura is like, but I think it's because when like my parents are like immigrants, like they're Nigerian immigrants, so their Black experience is gonna be different to mine, because I was born here. So I think like even the way I was raised was a little like different. Like I've been called, like the Oreo thing type, whatever, like that's awful in the nature. But I don't think I was like ever like ashamed to be Black. I just don't think that I was like championing for like things that I probably should have been. But I also don't think like that's entirely my fault, because when you're young, like teachers are supposed to teach you about the correct history. And like that, like I haven't learned about like actual like Black history and like what it means to see all these accolades until I was doing it like my sophomore year in high school. So yes, like when I was learning about all these things like in middle school and like when I was young, like I was like, oh, like those are Black people too. But you don't really learn about good things. You learn about like enslavement, right? And they call it slavery. And then everybody looks at you like, as a Black person in the class. So it's like they kind of force you to like not be comfortable in your Black skin. And when you do talk about like being Black and like the oppression that you face, it's kind of like that's not true. Like you're like my teachers would always be like, but you're so smart, like you're such an exceptional person. And like when you're young, you're like, yeah, I'm smart, oh my God, I'm so happy. Like, but that's a microaggression, which is not a microaggression, it's like really racism, because you're telling me that I'm like some exception, which means that you think that Black people can't be like that. So I think when I started doing my own research was when I was like, yeah, like there needs to be a change. So no, I haven't been my whole life. And it's like, but I don't really like blame myself either. It's not like I chose to not know about the things I knew.
So I was wondering, because this is something that I've recently been learning a lot about, is the way that we're taught history in schools is very whitewashed. and things like one of the biggest ones is obviously the whitewashing of Martin Luther King, because he is taught in a way that you only hear like 3 quotes from him the entire time, and you don't hear what he actually was speaking about or standing for. And then there's tons of other Black history that we're just not taught in schools, that I've been learning through the different people on social media that have brought up these things, and then I've had to go and learn them on my own. I was wondering what that experience is like as a person of color. Like, what's it like? What is that experience like? Because I'm sure that there are things that like you weren't taught in school about your own history. And I was just kind of wondering what that experience is like from your perspective.
When you do your own research, it's kind of like you're teaching yourself again. And it's like, oh, I should have learned this in 10th grade when like my teacher was talking about this person, right? Or like when you learn the truth about like figures that people like put up on pedestals, like George Washington didn't have like wood in his mouth. He had like people's teeth in his mouth. Like he was a bad man. Like Thomas Jefferson was a bad man. All these presidents were like bad people, but because they were white, it's like, oh, we should revere them and they're so amazing. No. Like in my AP US history class, like my teacher told everybody in the class that like enslavement was, well, she called it slavery, but enslavement was like solely economics. Like it had nothing to do with the color of your skin. Like it had nothing to do with the fact that like Black people were the ones that were being captured. It was just because like it was for the economy. And I knew that was wrong, but like nobody else in my class was saying anything. And I think I was like one of 2 Black people in my class. And it's like, sometimes you just like don't, that's like probably the one thing, like one of many in like that school, but like one thing that I always remember when I talk about this, because it's like I didn't say anything, but I knew it was wrong. But it's also like she's the teacher, so it's like, what is she even talking about? Like she has a degree and she's old enough to know that what she's saying doesn't make sense, but like she's still teaching it to us, you know, and then being tested on that. Like even on the AP US exam, like there was a question about Malcolm X and nobody in my class knew it except for me, because the way they framed the question was like in a positive light, as opposed to like how he's usually talked about, like he's evil, like he wants to like kill all white people, when in reality that's not the case. So yeah.
What were some of the questions and some of the lessons in history that you wish had been discussed in school when you were still going to, you know, K through 12?
I wish I learned about the Black Panthers. Like I love the Black Panthers so much. Maya Angelou also, just like people in the arts, also people in STEM, right? Like I didn't learn about Henrietta Lacks till I was like in college, and that's not embarrassing, but it's embarrassing. Like that's crazy, because like she has such a big part in like DNA and like all this testing, and nobody teaches you about her. Like Black people have to make their own movies about themselves in order for people to even learn. And I'm sure half the people don't even know who Henrietta Lacks is, but like use Google, look her up, right? So I think just like everything, in every single topic, there's something that I could have learned about a Black person that I didn't. Like there are just so many white people's names that I know of that have absolutely nothing to do with my life. And like the research that I do on my own, I'm like, wow, this applies like everywhere. Like all these inventions that Black people have made, I would have never known that if I didn't look it up. So
I have a question. If you were to be a professor in your major, what class would you want to teach? Like just hypothetically.
okay, so I'm Africana Studies and Political Science. So I think I would love to teach an Africana Studies course. but I think I might teach a political science course because they need Black people to teach those classes. I think there just needs, like, I don't know if I have a course in like mind in particular, but I just think that I've had one Black political science professor and he doesn't work here anymore. So, right. I just think that they're, the professors in that department, some of them, well, most of them, the ones that I've had, like when topics about race comes up and like people say outlandish things, it shouldn't be my job to like defend like people. Like I don't think that's right. Like I think as a professor, you should know like what's wrong and what's right. And I don't know if it's because they're white that they don't do it, or like they feel like it's not their job, but like maybe having like a Black professor would alleviate that stress, because I'm not the only Black person who's a political science major. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels like this.
I know in the past you've said that you don't like to use the term microaggressions. So I was curious as to like I guess why.
I think when we say microaggressions, like I think, I think it's important to be wary of when like schools start to teach you things like, oh, like this is a microaggression. Here's a video of like, and it makes them seem very small. Like I started to notice that like a microaggression is racism. Like I don't like, like I don't think there should be like, yes, it's a branch of racism, but it's racism. I think because we're in such a time that like this is super important that we need to call it like it is, because it's the same thing. It's like, oh, you're not racist, you're just ignorant. You're a racist. Like that's just that's what you are, and people need to address you as such, so we can make a change faster. Because I think that when we start using like, and that's not to say that microaggression is like a dumb term. It's not. I've heard people use it in a way that makes it seem smaller than it actually is, which like allows people to say like, oh, change takes time, when like that doesn't make sense. Like change doesn't take time. When the Black Panthers were like outside of the California Capitol, they took away the open carry law in like 2 months. That doesn't take time. Like it just takes time when people are trying to come up with excuses for you to like not get what you need. So that's why I don't like, I use it, but I'm careful of who I use it around.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And you grew up on Long Island, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know Long Island, it's on the list of like one of the most segregated places in the nation. So I guess, did you have any experiences with discrimination or racism growing up on Long Island?
Yeah, so actually I could speak on the like segregation part, because I live in Wheatley Heights, which is like the same thing as Wyandanch, and that's like a Black area for the most part. And like when we went to, like I went to Hills West, which is like Half Hollow Hills School District, whatever. So like they would get like they would get the Black kids. They would get like us from Wheatley Heights, and then like we would go to like a white school with people from Dix Hills, Deer Park, Huntington, whatever. So, but like we were all like at one time we were all on the same bus. Like when I was in elementary school, like everybody from like the people who went to Hills West, because there's also Hills East, but like the Black people who went to Hills West, we were all on the same bus. And then I guess there was like more Black people, so then we got 2 buses. Like big hooray. So we all came, it was like 2 buses, 48 and 24. And those were the only buses that took like Black people who lived in Wheatley Heights to school. And then if like you were Black and you lived in Dix Hills, like that was, that was something different. But as per like oppression and racism, yeah, I mean, I went to a school with kids who think they own the world. So that's like innate. And it's interesting to see how they like reacted to this summer. Cause it's like, we've been saying this to you. And now all of a sudden it's, oh my gosh, like how was I ever supposed to know this? And it's like, because you don't listen. Like, yeah, why would you ever know something that's like happening right in front of you? Because you were literally a perpetuator of what's going on, but be easy,
Got it. And there's also one question in the chat. It's So it's what are the most joyful times or memories you've made with the Black community on campus?
Any stellar day is a good day to me. I think the Black Involvement Fair is one that's always great. ASU, I'm also an ASU, I'm the head CO, that's what I forgot. ASU fashion show was like the one that like I did was one of the best experiences of my life, like getting to know the models and like running the show with like 4 other people was amazing. And I just think that like majority, even if it's like being in East and like we're all just in one corner, I think whenever I'm around Black people on this campus or in general, it's just always a good time. Like I might not like everybody at the time because I might be like annoyed or like everybody has a long day, but I just think that there's always a sense of community. So I don't think I have like a favorite one, but I just like those are the ones that just come to mind. Image awards too for NAACP plug, but yeah.
I've actually read a few articles about the ASU fashion show, and I've had the chance to go like myself yet, but I it seems like it's like a really beautiful event. I was wondering if you could describe it a little bit.
Yeah, so it's like I'm describing it from a mind of a CEO now, someone who like runs the show, does the practices, right? So like there's a lot of stress that goes into it, but like when you watch it, it kind of just seems like it's like an outer body experience because like the lighting, the clothes, like the music. So I think you will find yourself in like a really cultural event, and it just like you can't help but be impressed. Like I can help but be impressed, and I knew everything that was happening like behind the scenes. So hopefully, before you graduate, like there's another fashion show, because we can't have one this year, but it's definitely something that everyone should go to before they graduate.
I was wondering, you mentioned that you wanted to become a lawyer and you're going to be working a few years doing attorney. I was wondering what kind of law do you want to get into?
Okay, so I actually don't know exactly what type of law I want to do. I definitely want to help people. I want to make a change. I don't want to just do stuff for no reason, I feel like, because law school is a lot of work. But I also like am aware that I like I said before, I don't like to owe people anything. So I'm going to need to make money, right? And in this country, they don't allow you to do both, unfortunately. So I want to do both. So maybe hopefully I'll find a position that's possible, or I make one, but maybe like do something that's going to make me money for like half of the week, and then the rest of the week something that like allows me to sleep at night. So I haven't decided yet, but somewhere in that realm.
I think we were talking earlier. I know you were very young when you moved from Queens to Long Island, and I think I'm just kind of curious, from when you're moving from place to place, and even like the different part of Long Island, which is on campus. I guess like how are your experiences different, and how do you feel like being in each location kind of makes you feel?
Okay, so when I was younger, the part of Queens that I lived in had like a very heavy Asian population, which like was fine. Like I didn't like I was young, so I was like, oh yeah, like everybody's my friend. Like I went to St. Anne's where there's like a plethora of like people there. But I just felt very like at home in Queens, like going to the store, like at the park, like whether it's in like my apartment building, like I saw people who looked like me, and like even if I didn't, like I didn't really have a problem, but I also was young. So I don't know if my parents' experience in Queens would like mimic mine, because they are older, they were working, right? They're immigrants. Um Long Island, like I mean Wheatley Heights is fine, right? But like school wise, I didn't have like a bad experience every day. I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't like getting bullied or anything, but it was like doing reflective work. It was definitely a lot worse than like maybe I remember it, like than I was at like in the point. Like I was on the volleyball team. Like I like was vice president of my class, right? So, but like and even in those positions, like I knew that there were issues. And maybe because I wasn't like as aware, I don't want to say hyper aware, but like as aware as I am now, they weren't as like huge to me. But now that I'm like on this campus, I think like I know like what's going on, which is why like so many things bother me. And I feel the need to like speak up a lot. So it's kind of like, I guess like race relations wise, like every place I've moved has gotten worse. But I think just me being aware has made it better in the sense that I like have a plan of what I want to do. But it's still like harder because of course I wish I was in a place that like I didn't have to work as hard. Like I could see people that look like me and the people that I see are getting treated correctly. But I guess that just like makes my fire burn brighter. I just hope it doesn't like burn out. That's the only thing.
How do you see things in like the future? Like, do you see things getting better over the next few years?
I hope so. Like I could only hope, right? I think just like I don't know, this country is like ridiculous. But I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna speak it into existence. I'm gonna say yes because I don't want my children to do the same thing I'm doing. I think that is bad. And I think that speaks poorly of the country that we're in because it's like we're doing the same thing that people were doing like before. So, yes, hopefully. But I do think that this country needs to do something about it because there's a whole group of people who don't think that people who look like me should even be allowed to breathe air, right? So, like, I think that should become like criminal. Like, this country can make everything that involves like people of color, like criminal acts and like arrest them, put them in prison for it. So, like, okay, do the same thing with hate crimes. Like, hate crimes should not be as hard to prove as they are right now. Like, you literally have to like call the FBI if you want to be taken serious. So, yes, hopefully, but there's a lot of work to do.
I think we're just about wrapping up. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat or on mic. I think my last question is just, what are you most excited for once you're graduating, or how do you feel about graduating now that you're at your last semester?
I think it's been a long 4 years, but they've been super short at the same time. Like, it seems like I just got here, but I know like I've definitely aged here. I'm excited to graduate. I don't have the desire to be here anymore. I'm gonna be honest. I'm like if they tell me I can graduate like in a couple weeks, I'd probably do it. But because there's like a lot. I don't want to say like I hate it because the people here I think have made my experience here at Stony Brook, and like they weren't lying at freshman orientation when they said like if you want to be happy here, you need to get involved, because I definitely wouldn't have had anything to do. I wouldn't have met anyone, and I wouldn't have been sane if I like wasn't involved, which I think that's why I have so many involvements. So like I have stuff to do and I keep on meeting new people. But I think I'm excited to graduate. I'm excited to leave this place in the rearview mirror. I'm excited to see what my life has next for me, because I think that there's a lot that I could do. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. It was so nice to hear all your thoughts. Thank you everyone for coming out. I think there's no more questions, but was there any questions that you wanted to ask us, or we're good to go?
No, thank you for having me. It was great conversation.
Of course. Thank you too again for coming.
Thank you. Are we good? I don't know.
Yes, I think we're good to go.
Bye. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Good night.